This is CBS 2 News.
The first thing I noticed was the crack in the street. Started to walk down the street, saw a similar parallel crack to it, thinking, oh my God.
I was in my house and the whole house was shaking.
Right now at 4, breaking news. A magnitude 4.8 earthquake centered in northern New Jersey rocks the entire tri-state area and beyond. This afternoon, special live team coverage of the Northeast earthquake. Good afternoon. I'm Alice Gaynor in for Christine Johnson.
And I'm Maurice Dubois. You felt it. I felt it.
Oh, yeah.
We all felt it. Everybody's talking about it. It startled everybody this morning. 10:23 a.m. The ground shook beneath our feet. The epicenter of the quake, Reddington, New Jersey, about 45 miles west of the city. Similar scenes playing out across our area. Walls rattling, people startled. This is security cam footage from Zap Comics. This is in Wayne, New Jersey. Cash register and the counter there on the left do a little bit of shaking. The employee stopping, ultimately, to see what the heck's going on.
The quake rattling the city as well. In Astoria, Queens, someone captured this video from inside their apartment, a bar cart shaking. Thankfully, those bottles didn't tip over. Tremors were felt throughout the boroughs.
And residents in Randolph, New Jersey say the quake caused this massive water main break here. Happened this afternoon on Pleasant Hill Road. Residents, neighbors tell us the water was flowing for hours before it was finally shut off.
We have our crews spread out across the tri-state area covering all angles of today's earthquake.
And we're going to begin with Lonnie Quinn and how unusual this is here on the East Coast. Never seen anything like it in our lifetimes, Lon.
I was born and bred in Connecticut, and this is the first time I've ever felt anything like this. I mean, we talked about it this morning. I was sound asleep. I got home late last night, had a little bit of water in the basement, so I was up until like 4:30. I was sound asleep at 10:23. This thing rattled me up. I initially thought it was wind because my windows were rattling and shaking. Looked outside, the trees were not blowing. What is that? Then I thought maybe it was something mechanical. I raced downstairs into my basement to check on the boiler, right? And on the way down, I'm looking at my kitchen, and we got some hanging plants, and the plants are swaying like this. It just, the visual reminded me of when I lived in California and we would get earthquakes. I saw a lot of that. I used to have a hanging pot rack. It would swing during an earthquake. And I thought, man, we're in the middle of an earthquake. Well, let's talk about the details of it, because for us in our area, this is a big boy, almost as big as it gets. A 4.8, 10:23 this morning. The depth, 4.7. The deeper the earthquake, the bigger the punch, and a real deep earthquake would be like 7 kilometers deep. This is 4.7. Look at this, all right? This is a government report here from Who Felt the Earthquake. Here we are with the epicenter in Reddington, New Jersey. But look at where the reports came in from. I mean, down around Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, you betcha. Look at this. Some reports up into northern New England. Widespread reports, and we clearly had the majority of the reports in our area. But just the fact that some people felt it well outside is abnormal. What are we talking about in terms of magnitude? So this is a 4.7, was it 4.7, Mo, or 4.8? 4.8. 4.8. So it's almost a 5. Just look at how that stacks up in terms of magnitude. So a 4.0 is considered a light earthquake, but still the equivalent of 33,000 pounds of explosives going off at one time. We were closer to a 5, which would be a moderate, not something you take too lightly. A 5 is the equivalent of, can you see that, guys? 1 million pounds of explosives. 1 million pounds of explosives. I mean, is that like a couple of tractor-trailer trucks? I don't know. It's a lot of explosives going off at the same time. Some property damages, some cracks in the streets. We saw all that kind of activity out there. The record for New Jersey is a 5.3, way back in 1783. I don't know how accurate the recording systems were back at that point in time, but 5.3 is the record. We're close at a 4.8. Listen, the culprit here is the Ramapo fault line. We've seen a number of earthquakes. I cover these all the time, 1.7s, 1.8s. Well, I've never, since I've been here with you guys, covered something this big. And there is an area right through New York City. It's called the Hudson Canyon. We have these little, almost like tributaries to a fault line, these little fissures, right? In terms of Manhattan, just look at this for a second. The last 5.0 in New York City was in 1884. It is said, all right, the scientists tell us, and again, this is more seismology than meteorology, so please bear with me, but I find it fascinating. A 5.0 should occur somewhere in the city about once every 100 years. So this is 140 years. Pretty darn close. The next jump would be a 6.0. That's about 670 years. So we got another 500 years for something like that. But, you know, in terms of the activity that we have in our area, the red would show you it's like really big and sharp out there right now. It's fading now because it's just sort of fading away as we speak. We're going to keep our eye out for, you know, some aftershocks. But look at the activity that you see in California almost on a daily basis. So just wrapping it up here one more time. Notable earthquakes. 4.8. Today, we had a 4.8 on August 23rd in 1928. Had a 3.4 September 9th, 2020. Remember that one? On February 3rd, 2009, we had a 2.9. This is some crazy stuff going on in our area, but that is the way that we see it out there today. And yet, the picture right now is nice and calm. We are getting ready as we move into the weekend for some nice weather to be stacking up. I'm going to talk a lot about weather today as well, but this is the story, guys. We do not get something like this in this area. We start off by saying, I'm a lifelong resident here. Never. I mean, all three of us.
Same, yeah.
That's right. Born and bred. No such thing.
Well, you and I were on the phone this morning. Like, what in the world was that?
I know, but living in California, though, this is kind of tame. They're looking at us and going,
You and I both. You're right. We both lived up there as well.
Shook and, you know, and everybody's okay.
That's right.
Thankfully, that's the bottom line.
My brother's out in California. Right. I think he's kind of like, guys. But Lonnie, I got to say, I've never seen you this animated before, and that's really saying something.
No, you should be out here every night. You don't even need caffeine. So,
listen, this
is a big deal.
This is a big deal. A 4.8. I've reported on so many of these are like 1.7s.
Right.
And a lot of times, guys, when we report on those, I've got to go out looking around to find somebody who can talk about their experience, right? Because most people don't feel them. This was felt by everybody. That government reporting agency that I showed you reports up and down the eastern seaboard, anywhere from Washington, D.C. into portions of Maine. Yeah, for us, this is big, but you're right, Mo. In California, this wouldn't make the news.
I know, but 40 million people along the East Coast, it's a big deal. All right, Lonnie, thank you. We'll come back to you in a little bit. Meantime, the city's top officials gathered to coordinate their response to the quake.
That's right. CBS 2's Jennifer Bisram continues our coverage. She is live at the city's emergency management headquarters in downtown Brooklyn. What are they saying there, Jennifer?
Hi, Maurice and Alice. Yeah, that 4.8 earthquake could be felt here in New York and New Jersey at 10:23 this morning. At noon, almost all of the New York City leaders gathered here at the emergency management headquarters in downtown Brooklyn to give New Yorkers an update. The mayor is saying New Yorkers should go about their business. No major damage or injuries were reported, but he did say to be on the lookout for any damage. Now, take a look at video that we have for you of that 4.8 magnitude earthquake, where it could be seen in our area, in homes, at a UN Security Council meeting, and even through traffic cameras. Again, New York City leaders quickly gathered to update New Yorkers and tell them that no major damage or injuries were reported, but construction workers, building owners were being asked to monitor structures just in case. In the meantime, New York City emergency management officials saying this is a good time to get prepared. Take a listen.
I would encourage all New Yorkers to use this as a wake-up call to make sure that they are prepared for future seismic activity, right? Know what to do. Know not to evacuate outside your building. Know if you are outside to stay away from power lines or things that can collapse. Make sure you have emergency supplies on hand. Make sure you have a plan for your family.
Now, the tremor could be over, but again, the city officials say be on the lookout for any damage. If you see any cracks or damage in your home, reported to 311. Again, no major impacts to infrastructure or injuries reported. Schools, bridges, tunnels, subway systems, all were not affected, thankfully. City leaders also urging New Yorkers today to sign up for Notify NYC for any emergency updates. They say also, again, this is a good time to be prepared, but thankfully no major injuries were reported and no major structure damage. We're live from downtown Brooklyn. Jennifer Bisram, CBS 2 News.
Okay, Jen, thanks so much.
And people near the epicenter in New Jersey felt it the most. The bullseye was in Reddington in Hunterdon County.
CBS 2's Christine Sloan live with reaction there. Christine.
Well, that's right. This is the epicenter of the earthquake, Reddington, New Jersey, a quaint town in Hunterdon County. But you know what? We felt it all across New Jersey. I was in Union County. My house shook. I heard a loud noise. I felt something had just hit my home and noticed some of my painting sort of slanted. But that is the story we're hearing all across this region. People not believing that a 4.8 earthquake could hit our area. Now, here in Reddington, emergency crews have been on the roads. They've been responding to gas leaks, the mayor tells me. Luckily, we've seen no injuries here reported, but residents say soon after the shake, a tree came down on Roosevelt Road. Emergency officials say that they suspect the quake was the cause, as well as an oversaturated ground. The mayor also tells me a historical site in Reddington was damaged. The upper part of the grist mill, which was built in 1760, collapsed. Residents say the quake that shook the ground just after 10:30 Friday morning was like nothing they've felt before.
It felt like 50 enormous trees falling around my house and on my house, and I thought that the roof was going to collapse in and then the walls were going to come in. So I ran downstairs when I realized it was an earthquake, because we had had a small earthquake here a couple weeks ago.
I knew right away that it was an earthquake. Immediately reached out to our township resources, police, fire, OEM, rescue, directed them to immediately begin assessing our critical infrastructure in town, roads, bridges, buildings.
And of course, the historical site, we're told, is the place that got the most of the damage here in Reddington. And again, officials here are going around homes checking for gas leaks. They say they've gotten dozens of calls of gas leaks in this area. Again, we're on the Ramapo fault line, and this is the strongest quake they've felt in this area in years. And I just want to tell you a really tiny story. When I was at my home earlier today, I grew up in California. My mom was staying with me, and you know, when I heard my house shake, I sort of just rushed down to the family room, and are you okay? Are you okay? And she was just sitting on the couch like, oh, it's just an earthquake. So we think it's pretty big here, and it is to us, but in California, I would imagine they would think, hey, it's just an earthquake. My mom didn't move an inch, Maurice. She did not move an inch. She was like, it's just an earthquake, and it doesn't feel that bad,
yeah,
even though the house was shaking. Yeah.
Truly, exactly what we were talking about. Folks in California kind of go, huh?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Christine, thanks so much. Great story. Glad everybody is okay with you. Yes. Meantime, in Newark, authorities say several homes may have been compromised due to the quake.
More than 24 people have been evacuated. CBS 2's Natalie Dudridge is live at the scene in Newark with the very latest. Natalie?
Well, hey, Maurice, Alice, first I just want to mention we were also covering another story in Hillside, a pack-a-thon, when we started to see our camera shake. And then we got a call that there was this instability here in Newark. This is to 7th Avenue. The street is still closed. You've got Newark Police, Newark Fire, PSEG still all here. And I want to show you what the home looks like. We're actually we'll start by we see a group of people over there. I first want to tell you 25 adults, 3 children had to be evacuated from 3 homes. They're still waiting to see where they're going to spend the night tonight. You can see they're hanging out on a neighbor's porch right there. But we're going to zoom up because at 10:30 this morning, they tell us it felt like a train was rumbling by. And inspectors say the ground actually shifted, which led to 2 homes on 7th and 3rd to basically lean into one another. So you have to really take a close look. We're zooming in. You can see damage there to the roof. So residents say there used to be at least a 2-foot gap there, but now the buildings are touching. It's almost like the eavesdrops crunched into one another. And then if we pan down, the doors of the home now open, but building inspectors were here earlier. They stuck red stickers on the doors, deeming the homes unsafe to enter. And authorities actually say that 3 houses have been considered unstable, 313, 315, and 317 here on 7th Avenue. So they're still investigating. And again, 10 families had to be evacuated. Here's what they had to say.
I heard this rumbling a little bit, but I figured it was on the outside. They told us they're going to wait for somebody to come by and see if we can go back in.
The whole entire bed started to shake and the room started to shake, and I just heard crumbling.
First, I just felt like my chair shake, and then my whole body started to shake. I thought somebody was banging on my door.
So some good news. Residents do say they were allowed to go in, get some clothes, get some supplies. A couple of them get their pets. Paul Carey there, he has 2 cats. The Red Cross also just told us that they opened a reception center at La Casa de Don Pedro. That's on Broadway in Newark, where people can go for the time being. Again, you can see the neighbors helping out some of the residents here. So there's a team of volunteers. There was emergency response vehicles here taking them to that location just to ensure everyone is okay. And of course, that's while engineers take a look at these properties and deem if they will eventually be able to re-enter. We're live in Newark. Natalie Duddridge, CBS 2 News.
Wow, Natalie, thank you. That's an incredible sight to see there.
Yeah, I mean, earthquake proofing, not even a thing, right? Or older buildings, East Coast, who would even imagine?
Right. And she's talking about the pets there. I got to ask, do you know how your dog responded?
My dog was fine.
Yeah, same. I checked in on, he was just sleeping, didn't move. So I was like, okay, if the dog's not moving, it must be okay.
I guess we're okay, right? All right, we're going to continue our coverage here. Special coverage of the Northeast earthquake. More of the incredible images coming into our newsroom. Plus, our live team coverage continues from throughout the tri-state. And we encourage you to share your image with us on social media.
Also ahead, what about potential aftershocks? We check in with a seismologist for more on the science behind earthquakes.